Yeah, welcome in this session where we are going to look at the second part of food waste management. Like previously, I communicated from the previous video that I made today, and let us go into it so that we have better understanding and or clarity about food waste management. So now this is the last learning outcome of the module called food plant management. And this learning outcome, the last learning outcome is applying knowledge of waste management in food plant. So now, waste management in real terms is what? What is it exactly? So this waste management in a food plant is a critical component of sustainable operations, ensuring both environmental stewardship and economic efficiency. Effective waste management practices involve the dynamic collection, processing, and disposal of food waste, byproducts, and packaging materials. These practices not only reduce the environmental footprints of the food production process, but also enhance food safety, compliance with regulatory standards, and operational cost effectiveness. The problem of losses and the waste concerns about 30%, as discussed earlier in a previous video, of the world's agri-food production and is the main critical points of the current agribusiness development models. By implementing strategies such as recycling, composting, anaerobic digestion, and waste to energy technologies, food plants can transform waste into valuable resources, minimize landfill use, and contribute to a circular economy. Now, what about the categorization of industrial food waste? Industrial food waste, they are basically divided into three or four types, okay, or classes. Industrial food waste can be categorized according to its nature into several distinct types, such as inorganic waste, chemical waste, biodegradable waste, and hazardous waste. Now, for this organic waste, underneath this classification, we have food residues, processing waste, spoiled food, byproducts. That's it. In organic waste, this is the type of waste that can be biodegradable. They are of course biodegradable because they can be digested by microorganisms, insects, worms, so that the manure can be obtained from it or organic fertilizer. So these food residues include leftovers food, peels, shells, and bones. Okay. Food processing waste such as fruits, vegetables, scraps, pulp from juice production and trimmings. Okay, these are also processing waste. While food residues are leftovers. Okay, or peels, shells, bones, etc. Also, in organic waste, we have spoiled food that has spoiled or expired or contaminated food products that are no longer safe for consumption. They are all under classification or subclass of this spoiled food. What about byproducts? Like whey from cheese production or spent grains from brewing. So these are considered as byproducts. Okay. Another categorization of industrial food waste we can mention is the inorganic waste, okay, such as, for example, packaging materials, non-biodegradable containers, okay, such as plastic buckets, tubs, and jars. We also have chemical waste, such as cleaning agents, additives, and preservatives, processing chemicals, such as, for example, solvents or byproducts from food processing chemicals. Okay. Now, what about biodegradable waste? These are composable materials such as organic matter, like previously communicated. It's like this organic waste to biodegradable waste. For example, organic matter that can be decomposed such as fruit, vegetable scraps, coffee grounds, and eggshells, they fall under the same category too. What about hazardous waste? This can be, for example, chemical or inorganic waste, such as, for example, if it is involving heavy metals, okay, aflatoxin, and etc. Contaminated waste, for example, waste contaminated with pathogens, chemicals, or hazardous substances. Expired chemicals, for example, expired or unusable chemicals that pose a risk to health or to the environment, like in our laboratory facilities. Once we have used those corrosives or heavy or strong acids, strong bases that can harm the environment. So they are classified as hazardous waste or caustic solutions and so on. So we have also another categorization of industrial food waste as recyclable waste, such as, for example, metals, glass, plastics, paper, and cardboard that can be recyclable. And we have also liquid waste. According to the state of physical state of categories, industrial waste, food waste, we can mention solid, semi-solid, and liquid, as well as also gases, because those are the main classification based on the uh, physical form or nature, the nature of the food waste. In liquid waste, we often have wastewater, oils, and fats. For example, this wastewater from cleaning, cooking, and processing activities, and oils and fats used cooking oils, and the fats from food preparations. Note: categorizing industrial food waste according to its nature, food plants can be better managed disposal method, recycling opportunities, and resource recovery processes, ultimately leading to more efficient and sustainable waste management practices. Like I communicated it in the part one of this food waste management. We need to divide our food waste materials into at least three categories. Those that are biodegradable, those that are not degradable, not biodegradable, non-biodegradable, and we leave also the solid one that, for example, metals, glasses, they can take their also the other side because they can be recycled or transformed into other things. Now, some of the industrial food waste treatment methods involves this processing flow chart. Okay, for example, food cultivation, food cooking, wastewater food or food waste, transporting material tank, reaching, crushing residue, landfill or stewing, three-phase separation, and we get the oil. We get also underneath strand water, anaerobic digestion, dehydration, biogas manure. For example, we can get this biogas and we use to cook food in our kitchen. If we can now treat this biodegradable food waste into renewable energy. The other side, we have also to look at the waste or food waste. We transport it, and we use these treating methods to get something from them. For example, anaerobic digestion, to get, for example, biogas. Landfill incineration, we burn it. This landfill is to discard them in the land, in the open field. Composting, we can make those that are biodegradable to bring manure, or we can use the heat moisture reaction, other chemical composition or transformation to get energy from them. So how does poor waste water management affect the climate change crisis? Okay, how does poor waste management affect the climate change crisis? So this picture, you need to reflect your opinions upon this picture because so much can be discussed up from it, because look at the sea. Is this the sea, ocean, river, or whatever? So what do you suggest? And look at the city here, and look at the sheep, look at the stones, look at the mountain. So how does now poor waste management affect the climate change crisis? So for my understanding, you also need to bring yours. I will just give one attempt. This poor waste management affect the climate change crisis because we say that emission of greenhouse gases. So this poor waste management affects positively or play a positive role to increase these greenhouse gases, such as, for example, methane, carbon dioxide, and the other gases, sulfur dioxide, etc., that can heat up the planet Earth. Then, once the planet Earth is heat up, now that snow or the ice that is located at the north and south pole melt to become liquid. Now the sea level is increasing because of those gases, because the planet keep heating up. Like there's a time the Earth, within even not up to 10 years, it has gone up to 0.5 degrees C. That is a great move. That is the fastest move for this Earth to heat up. So humankind or mankind or any Earth inhabitants need to participate to combat greenhouse gases. Yeah, that's my attempt. Maybe you can also lift yours or say yours. And once the sea level or ocean level increases or goes up, this beautiful city will perish if nothing is done. Okay. So what is climate change again? So changing the climate, what that's what we used to call climate change, has recently gone and become more than obvious. So by the end of this century, it is estimated that the Earth's surface temperature will rise by approximately 2 degrees C, having devastating effects on our ecosystems, flora, fauna, and humans. Moreover, the chemical composition of the atmosphere has also noticed significant changes thanks to an increase in greenhouse gas emissions, predominantly methane, carbon dioxide, and nitrous oxide. Now, greenhouse gases act like duvet covering our planet and warming it. This caused by the Earth's radiation that is unable to escape from our atmosphere. What is the outcome? Shrinking glaciers and reduced snow covers are diminishing freshwater sources and rising sea water levels. All of these can easily cause an increase in the number of floods, endangering both coastal and sea areas. This is the most interesting part while of the course that I teach. Like teaching people about how to survive. Mm. We have to survive. We can fit in this model, so we have to do something for us to survive, of course. So now, what is the definition of a climate change? This is the extra information. When we say climate, it's totally different from weather. So for weather is changing climatic condition for a short period of time, while the climate is change in climatic conditions for over a very long period of time. So it's usually defined as the average weather or more rigorously as the statistical description in terms of mean and variability of relevant quantities over a period of time ranging from months to thousands or millions of years. The classical period for averaging this variable is, for example, 30 years, as defined by the World Meteorological Organization. The relevant quantities are most often surface variables such as temperature, precipitation, and wind. What is now proper definition of climate change? The climate change is attributed directly or indirectly to human activity that alters the composition of the global atmosphere and which is in addition to natural climate variability observed over comparable periods. Does the climate change affect humans? Of course, yes. Like such as these greenhouse gases causes acidification of oceans, corals and planktons, exposing the whole ecosystem to new living conditions, rendering sea life unable to adapt due to the rapid intervention and so on. How does our waste management contribute to climate change? Very, very positive. This our waste management contribute to climate change in one way or the other, but nature itself is already very fragile, and our reckless attitude is now destroying a whole world of living organisms and our very own home. Our energy production, product consumption, and irresponsible waste management contribute directly to climate change by adding carbon-based particles into the air, which are produced during the burning of petroleum products. So the result is warmer air, creating a disastrous greenhouse gas effect. So now, waste management contributes directly to climate change because people are being naive. We are very, very greedy. So we are interested in a business that destroys our homes, our continent, our soul planet than just being just than just coming back to our senses and say enough is enough. Why do we keep harming the planet instead of preserving it? Okay, is business better than the owner of that business? That's my question. Is the business better than the owner of that business? If it's like that, one day probably will become UFOs. Okay, unidentified flying objects or other species in the universe. Okay, coming up to see this picture, uh, which is the poor waste management practices, for example, in Nigeria, in one of some of the states, you can see the the accumulation of plastic waste. You see, it means we are not being serious at all toward this matter. So the day we come, we say, how come we were so stupid so that we could not see this thing coming? Can you imagine? Yeah, it's pity to um, not taking proper measures toward the matter. Yeah. The impacts of poor waste management in the communities, for example, uh, we can list the impacts of poor waste management in communities are numerous. For example, poor waste management has emerged as one of the most pressing issues in the emerging countries. The production of trash in cities has increased significantly with negative consequences since the danger posed by this problem cannot be overstated. By 2050, worldwide waste is anticipated to reach 3.4 billion tons, more than double population growth during the same period, with Africa producing the least at 6%. However, overall trash creation is anticipated to treble by 2050 in Africa. So you can now imagine the impact of this poor waste management. The whole Africa is not only Nigeria or uh, West African countries. No, the whole Africa and the whole world, we are dealing with this poor waste management. We have good policies, but good policies are lying in books. They are not being implemented. Okay, if we can implement those policies, at least the world will be at safe and will be um, shifting from bad weather or bad climate toward good climate. These are the other examples of poor waste management practices, and I put the link in the description where I got this information from. This is not, it's not rumor. It's something that we can see vividly with our eyes open. So sometimes there is a time when the city is now smelling very, very bad. And we call upon those people who are good at treating industrial waste to come and help us. It's very, very funny. It's a shame that we have to carry all Africans, that we cannot manage these industrial waste or plastic waste. Can you imagine? At least from East Africa, we are one step ahead toward the to cleaning this kind of industrial waste. Look at the overseas. Most of the ocean cross countries, you can see this garbage in oceans, and fish will be eating this plastic, and we go to fish or to catch those fish to eat it. What will be the result? We get sick, we get cancers, we get many diseases because of our ignorance, because of our misconduct. Okay, because of our immorality. We refuse to do the right thing when it is time, and we pay or we face the consequences when we cannot do anything. So let us take the control measures while we can, before the things are still at our hands, before the matter get worse. Okay. So the application of industrial food waste treatment methods can be obtained from this, for example, this link. Yeah, I will put this link in the description, or you can just copy it and put it in your browser so that you can watch how to treat food waste. Like, see this beautiful lady, she's doing her best at least to clean the ocean. So we have to benchmark from one another, or from nation to nation or whatever, so that we adapt good practices to clean our shores. Okay, instead of blaming one country or one nation that they are not doing their best. This video is not about blaming games or blaming each other. It's all about appreciating those who are doing better, or educating the the youngs to take everything into their accountability, so that they will be not arguing. It's not my fault, it's your fault. No, this is no one's fault. We have to fight this battle together. Okay. Now, what is some of the possible solution to poor waste management? Now, the solution to waste management is currently landfill, which itself has a bad negative effect on our environment. Landfill is a waste disposal site where disposable materials are sent, and which actually presents a great risk due to the gases created in this open rubbish tip. High levels of methane gas and carbon dioxide are generated by waste decomposition. Can we change this serious problem? Of course, yes. A lot of these negative effects could be improved if humans slightly amended their behavior. For example, changing mindset or behavior, people's behavior. mm, By managing waste in a way that avoids landfill and reducing consumption by reusing products, we avoid the creation of unnecessary waste. Nevertheless, by separating and recycling the waste we create, we could reduce the amount of waste ending up in landfills. The waste that remains would be burned to create energy, meaning less waste or nothing at all is sent to landfill. Now, I emphasize, avoid blame games and take it seriously, and let's say it's my problem and yours too. All together, it's our problem. We have to share, carry the burden together. Because at the end of the day, if the climate says you must leave, those that affected this, those that produced huge waste or those that produced least waste, we are going to face the consequences together. Okay, that's a must. For example, recently a flood occurred in Lagos, Nigeria, rendering the residents of the area helpless. When situations like this occur, there is usually a blame game. Have you ever considered that our trash disposal practices may be causing an issue, particularly for individuals who live in communities with canals? So what's actually is the problem? Poor waste management practices, particularly extensive trash dumping in water bodies and unregulated disposal sites, exacerbate the problem of generally low sanitation rates within Africa. In Africa, urbanization is on the increase, and this trend is projected to continue. And when we talk these countries that are being developed, that urbanization is quickly rising, the land, the water, the air is being contaminated at highest level within short period of time. For example, not even up to 10 years, the population will pay the price if nothing is done by now. Okay? Mark my words. Yeah. Now, infrastructure and land use planning, particularly waste management, are not keeping up with the increase of metropolitan areas, which is a source of concern. This is especially important in slum regions, which make up a large component of many African cities and towns. As a result of Africa's industrialization and urbanization and the modernization of agriculture, waste creation is predicted to skyrocket. This will worsen the already existing waste handling capacity problems. Okay. Sometimes what we call development, it can be so called underdevelopment because the development which is not planned very well, progressively, and assisted by each and everyone, it's not development. For a nation, for any country to be developed, to be so-called developed, everyone needs to play his or her role, okay, maintaining what is already achieved and working harder to get to the point we are willing to get to. Yeah. For example, look at these papers. For example, from universities, from press, from whatever. Yeah, those who write much, academic institutions, and so on and so forth. Never use written papers for example, packaging materials with direct contact with the food, but recycle or burn it or convert them into cartons as secondary or tertiary packages. These papers, for example, you can treat them and they produce cartons that can be, for example, secondary package instead of using them to be like primary package, which has direct contact with the food. Because this ink that is on this paper, once it is mixed with food, that will be disastrous. And again, this paper can be used, for example, to produce other products. And whenever we are going to print a document, we make sure that we always have to think from the climate, from the environment first. So print what is utmost needed to be printed, and that one which is not be supposed to be printed, you can use soft copy because computers, smartphones are everywhere by now, so we can profit from not harming the environment because these papers came from trees, cutting down trees. So if we can minimize the amount of papers that we are using in academies in different institutions, we are saving the climate. Okay, that's why in Rwanda probably I used to see go green economy or whatever, go cashless, something like that. So in one way, it can make sense because if we leave papers, not for example 100%, but we can reduce emission at the highest level. So other possible solutions such as, for example, recycling and the zero waste habit take time, but every individual action matters. Since waste is an inevitable byproduct of human, it's important to start making changes, even by taking smaller steps toward the change. Start with avoiding single-use items and choosing durable materials that can be used numerous times instead ensuring less waste ends up in landfill. Okay, we can adapt this recycling and zero waste habits, decomposing waste, and we give good consumer practices. For example, next time you want to discard trash near the drainage, be aware that you are contributing significantly to the flood that is damaging your environment and climate change. Okay, now we can also adapt to reducing emissions from this deforestation and forest degradation. An effort to create an effort to create a financial value for the carbon stored in forests, offering incentives for developing countries to reduce emissions from forested lands and invest in a low carbon path to sustainable development. This one, REDS Plus, goes beyond reforestation and forest degradation and includes the role of conservation, sustainable management of forests, and enhancement of forest carbon stocks. We can also commit ourselves to reduction of greenhouse gases. Okay, we can also consider the approach for mitigation. This refers to the effort of limit or absorb gas emission that contribute to climate change. Emission can be limited by moving away from dirty fossil fuel, for example, using wind power or solar power or hydropower, whatever, by being more efficient when using energy, reducing consumption. Greenhouse gases can also be removed from the atmosphere by plants called carbon sequestration. One way of managing the deployment of mitigation activities it is through an international carbon market. So this is some of the treatments and the mission. Some of the mission. This is about inventory of waste treatment by anaerobic digestion. For example, emission to air, emission to water, and the treatment method is, for example, food waste collecting, food waste crushing, three-phase separating, aerobic digestion, dehydration, and so on, etc. Yeah. I'm so now we have to continue where we left off. So these I was saying that these are environmental impacts of waste by different treatment method. For example, by considering the landfill, anaerobic digestion, incineration, composting, heat moisture reaction, we can now study the impact of these food waste treatment method. For example, dairy, climate change dairy, acidification, carcinogens, you can see the data. For example, what about the carbon dioxide is emitted once we do anaerobic digestion? You can see the landfill has the highest. Yeah, landfill always has almost have always the highest. Look at the carbon monoxide, methane gas, and the total. So the total is always from probably this heat moisture reaction. No, yeah, has the highest. Okay. So further considerations to waste management. The main findings from the literature as follow from that paper that we came to discuss. This is a published work in one of the environmental journals where this table shows the comparison between different treatment methods and the findings which are summarized in this table. For the impact on climate change, anaerobic digestion has the lowest impact in the five treatment methods, and it is followed by composting, heat moisture reaction, and incineration. In contrast, landfill may create environmental impact of 10 times higher than the other treatment methods. The reason is that landfill produces more greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere, and only 70% of carbon dioxide is collected in practical applications. So we need also to discuss further consideration to waste management for continuous improvement toward our methodology or our methods to deal with those food waste. So now, the most effective way to reduce environmental impacts of food waste is to save food and avoid waste. Since food preparation and waste collection um, before and the terms that here should be the same as, for example, food or collection accounts for the largest proportion of the environmental impacts, regardless what treatment method is used. So the study also found that transportation would be an important source of pollution. Landfill occupies a large area, and the impact on global warming is huge. Therefore, the use of it should be reduced. Incineration is inclined to causing acid rain and eutrophication. And among the remaining three new technologies based on the features of food waste, anaerobic digestion has more advantages. Yeah. Thank you for watching. See you later.